वार्ताः। Welcome to Market Mantra, the program in which we give you a complete update on the economic news of the day. I am Anubha Rohatgi with my co-anchor Vibhuti Mishra.
धन्यवाद अनुभा। नमस्कार श्रोताओं, मार्केट मंत्र में आपका स्वागत है। आज के अंक में देश विदेश की आर्थिक गतिविधियों के साथ शेयर बाजार की कुछ हलचलों पे हम नजर डालेंगे। चूंकि आज मुहर्रम के कारण अवकाश है, तो हम एशिया और यूरोप के जो शेयर बाजार हैं उन पर चर्चा करेंगे। और चर्चा के लिए आज हमारे साथ स्टूडियो में मौजूद हैं वरिष्ठ आर्थिक विश्लेषक ए.के. भट्टाचार्य। भट्टाचार्य जी, मार्केट मंत्र में आपका स्वागत है।
नमस्कार, धन्यवाद।
और सबसे पहले एक नजर आज की आर्थिक सुर्खियों पर अंग्रेजी में हेडलाइंस के साथ हमारी सहयोगी अनुभा रोहतगी।
Thank you, Vibhuti. Indian exports show resilience amid global challenges, reports CRISIL. At multi-commodity exchange, gold price rises while silver is trading down, and oil prices steady amid Chinese demand concerns.
क्रिसिल की रिपोर्ट के अनुसार वर्तमान वित्त वर्ष की पहली तिमाही में वैश्विक चुनौतियों के बीच भारतीय निर्यात प्रभावी रहा। मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में सोने की कीमतों में तेजी और चांदी में गिरावट, और चीन की मांगों की चिंता के बीच तेल की कीमतें स्थिर। आज जारी क्रेडिट रेटिंग इंफॉर्मेशन सर्विसेज ऑफ इंडिया यानी क्रिसिल रिपोर्ट के अनुसार चालू वित्त वर्ष की पहली तिमाही में मुख्य निर्यात वस्तुओं में सकारात्मक वृद्धि के कारण भारतीय निर्यात प्रभावी रहा। कालीन, हथकरघा उत्पाद, मानव निर्मित उत्पाद, प्लास्टिक, लिनोलियम और रेडीमेड कपड़ों जैसे श्रम प्रधान निर्यात श्रेणी में वृद्धि सकारात्मक थी, हालांकि पिछले महीने की तुलना में धीमी थी। आयात की बात करें तो फलों और सब्जियों, अलौह धातुओं, परियोजना के सामान, कपड़ा, यार्न कपड़े से बने सामान और लकड़ी के उत्पादों में पिछले महीने की तुलना में वृद्धि देखी गई है। भट्टाचार्य जी, इस रिपोर्ट को आप किस रूप में देखेंगे निर्यात को लेकर के?
देखिए, जो पहली तिमाही की जो बात हम कर रहे हैं, जरूर ये जो वृद्धि जो है ये एक सकारात्मक एक घटना है। पिछले तिमाही मतलब जनवरी से मार्च 2024 का जो था, उसमें उतनी अच्छी खबर नहीं थी।
जी हाँ।
इसमें एक पॉजिटिव ग्रोथ मिला है, और जो क्रिसिल रिपोर्ट में जिसके ऊपर ध्यान आकर्षित नहीं किया गया है कि जो ओवरऑल जो सर्विसेज सेक्टर से भी जो एक्सपोर्ट जो हुई है,
जी हाँ,
वो अभी भी अच्छी एक वृद्धि से गति से बढ़ रही है। और जैसे आपने कहा कि जो सेक्टर में जो इजाफा हुआ है वो जॉब इंटेंसिव सेक्टर्स हैं, जहाँ पे नौकरियां आती हैं। तो अगर हमारे देश में जो श्रम और श्रमिकों के काम दिलाने के लिए जो इकाइयां जो हैं, और काफ़ी इकाइयां जैसे गारमेंट्स हुआ या प्लास्टिक, लिनोलियम, मैनमेड प्रोडक्ट्स हुए, इसमें जॉब क्रिएट ज़्यादा होता है। पर एक्सपोर्ट्स यानी निर्यात का जो चैलेंज जो है वो अभी भी हमारे सामने है, क्योंकि हमारे जो ग्रोथ की जो डिमांड जो है, एक इकोनॉमी की ग्रो को सस्टेन जब हम करते हैं, उसमें ट्रेड एक्सपोर्ट्स बहुत बड़ा एक योगदान किया करता है। एक जमाने में हमारे एक्सपोर्ट्स और जीडीपी का जो आंकड़ा था वो करीबन 25% का था, वो अब आस्ते आस्ते कम होकर करीबन 17-18 में आ चुका है। तो हमें और भी तेजी से निर्यात को बढ़ावा देना है, और ऐसे सेक्टर में देना है जिस सेक्टर में ना कि जॉब्स क्रिएट हो बल्कि उसके साथ साथ हमारी जो देश की जो अहम जो सेक्टर्स जो हैं जिसमें हमें एज है जो दूसरे देशों से, उसका एक इस्तेमाल कर सके। और जो चाइना +1 का जो एक स्ट्रैटेजी चला हुआ है, उसको भी देखना है कि किस तरह से जिस एरिया को चाइना वेकेट कर रहा है, क्योंकि चाइनीज जो लेबर मार्केट जो है वो काफी वॉलेटाइल हो चुकी है, दाम उसके जो वेजेस बढ़ गए हैं, पर हमारे देश में जो हमें एक कॉम्पिटिटिव एडवांटेज है उसको हम कैसे टेक्सटाइल्स की जैसे एरिया में और वही हमें देखना है किस तरह से बांग्लादेश और वियतनाम को हम उनके आगे बढ़ सकें इस सेक्टर्स में।
अगर हम इससे अलग थोड़ा सा अगर हम एक समग्र निर्यात की बात करते हैं, आपने चुनौतियों की बात की, जैसे कि हथियार वगैरह का क्षेत्र है, हम वहां भी अब धीरे धीरे बढ़ रहे हैं, उसको आप किस रूप में देखते हैं?
देखिए, जो हथियार जो डिफेंस की जो आपने बात की, उसमें पिछले 5 सालों में 2021 में या 20-21 में एक डिफेंस इंडिजिनाइजेशन जिसे कहेंगे, देश में बनाने का जो एक कार्यक्रम शुरू किया गया था, उससे एक्सपोर्ट्स निर्यात काफी बड़ी है। और पर ये जो निर्यात बड़ी है, ये पब्लिक सेक्टर मतलब स्टेट ओन्ड एंटरप्राइजेस के जरिए बनी है। अगर ये एक्सपोर्ट्स का बढ़ावा अगर प्राइवेट सेक्टर की सहायता से भी बढ़ता, मैं समझता हूँ हमारे देश की जो सामग्रिक अर्थनीति की जो एक इम्पैक्ट होता है वो और भी अच्छा होता, क्योंकि इस योजना में हमें पब्लिक सेक्टर और प्राइवेट सेक्टर दोनों का योगदान बहुत ज़रूरी है। और डिफेंस में ये हमें दिखने को मिला है कि पिछले 5 साल में डिफेंस की जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर की शेयर जो है वो 20% में रुका हुआ है। ये आगे बढ़ने की जरूरत है, जिससे कि ये पूरी तरह से अर्थनीति को पूरी एक सामग्रिक एक बेनिफिट मिले।
एक बस सवाल मैं ये करना चाहता हूँ, ये कृषि से ही जुड़ा हुआ है। निर्यात की बात हमने कर ली, आयात की बात करते हैं तो फलों सब्जियों की बात हुई, एक इसमें है परियोजना के सामान, प्रोजेक्ट्स गुड्स, ये क्या है, थोड़ा इसके बारे में आप बताइए।
देखिए, ये आपको इसके साथ ये जोड़ना पड़ेगा कि हमारे देश में पिछले 3 सालों में जो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर सरकार ने बहुत बड़ी एक जोड़ दी है कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में। उसका मतलब इन्वेस्टमेंट, जैसे रास्ता बनाना, रेलवेज में ट्रैक्स बनाना या एयरपोर्ट्स को मॉडर्नाइज करना, उससे जो चीजों की जरूरत होती है वो प्रोजेक्ट्स को एग्जीक्यूट करने के लिए जो सामान की जरूरत होती है उसका बहुत जरूरी होता है। और वो इस वक्त शायद जैसे कोई मशीनरी आइटम हुआ हमारे देश में नहीं बनता है, तो उसी जो कैपेक्स को बढ़ाने का एक प्रतिफलन ये है कि हम ये प्रोजेक्ट गुड्स का इंपोर्ट थोड़ा ज्यादा कर रहे हैं।
Mr. Bhattacharya, we were talking about the CRISIL report right now, but if I take you back just a day before, on Monday, this commerce industry department's report came out, which said that India's merchandise exports in June rose 2.6%, while the imports expanded by 4.9%. So overall, if we look at the figures that came out for June, day before, and when we look at the CRISIL report for the first quarter, how do you see the overall picture, and what would you say about the trade deficit?
Well, you raise an important issue. What we saw in June is broadly corroborated by the overall quarterly trend. Our exports are growing at low single digits, and imports are also growing at single digits. Now, what it means is that our domestic demand for imported goods is also slightly muted. So, if you look at it from a macroeconomic point of view, it does not augur too well, because you need your imports also to grow, because we are a growing economy. We are growing more than, last year we grew by 8.2%, and this year everybody says that we will grow by 7 to 7.2%. So therefore, for an economy that is growing, it should be engaged in more exports and higher imports. Now, but what is happening right now is that we are our exports growth at that 2% or 3% needs to be raised to 11-12%. As a matter of fact, in the 10 years ago, we used to have an annual growth rate of 10-12%. Why 10 years ago? Even 3 years ago, post-COVID, we saw a sudden bump in the growth. So therefore, there is need to pay more attention to exports, and for that you need basic factor market, labor market reforms, and make sure that our technologically, education and health sector are taken care of.
Well, you're talking about, increasing our exports. I have two questions here. The first being that you're talking about reforms. That's at the domestic level. But what about the world economy, the way the world economy has been since COVID, post-COVID, this Damocles sword of inflation that had been there, or recession rather say, that had been there. How much of that has been a factor in the exports, figures going down?
This has been a factor. You are right that the global economy and the connection between the global economy and trade, that link has snapped a bit. In a sense, earlier global economy would grow more by way of trade, but today the share of trade in global economy has also come down a little bit. So I entirely agree with you that the global economy is also not encouraging very robust trade growth. But you have to see that economies that are in a similar position in terms of per capita income, how they are doing in terms of exports.
Yes.
Now those countries are continuing to grow at rates that are higher than India. So therefore, we have to be a little more aspirational, and we have to make sure that our exports growth rate can regain the glory days that we achieved even 3 years ago.
And when we say that exports need to grow, we are right now, negotiating. We have FTAs with a lot of countries. We're negotiating an FTA with the UK. As we speak, there is an Indian team in Seoul for the next round of review meetings for, existing India-Korea FTA. So how important are such FTAs in further boosting trade, specifically exports?
These are very important instruments because as you would know that the World Trading Organization, that once upon a time used to be a major force in generating and supporting global trade. Today that World Trade Organization is losing its relevance.
Yes.
So therefore, all over the world, every country is looking for either joining a regional trading bloc or going in for bilateral trade agreements, including these free trade agreements. India has also followed that path because we cannot be outliers. So we have gone in for a UAE foreign trade agreement. We have got something with Australia. We are planning to do something with the European Union, something with the United Kingdom. Now the question is that we need to expedite the conclusion of this trade agreement, and the trade is all about give and take and exploiting the mutual advantages. If we have an advantage in terms of our services professionals or the information technology people, then we should take advantage of that by using the FTA route to send more of our IT professionals abroad and get those IT services. And also we need to tie ourselves into the global supply chains, for which we will need to have a little more attention on the kind of tariff structure that we have. Our tariff structures of late has seen some sort of an increase, which do not attract too many people to come and allow us to join into the global value chains. So we need an overall holistic approach to make sure that not just FTAs but also our tariff structures, they need to be looked at very closely.
When you talk of approach, now the budget is just round the corner. Less than a week, later, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is going to be presenting the full budget. So whether it is trade, whether it is economy, whether it's growth, exports, what are the expectations when because you were talking, use the words aspirations, you use the word, reforms. What can be done at the government level to, take these exports forward and to make our economy grow even faster than what it is happening?
Well, I think a very important point. Budget will be presented on 23rd of July, and I'm reasonably hopeful that not only will it lay down a path of fiscal consolidation going forward and increase capital expenditure, it will also facilitate a kind of environment which encourages more trade, and that I would say the beginning of that process could be a fresh relook at the kind of tariff structures that we have, because budget, remember, is actually deals with the tariffs.
Yes.
So if budget can actually take a close look at the tariff structures and make sure that we can import our raw materials and components at competitive tariffs and then value add, then export to other countries, to various, and also there is a tremendous need for reviving our bilateral investment treaties. So maybe the budget will take a close look at all these issues and provide a holistic solution to the big challenge that we are now discussing.
Well, if time permits, we will come back to budget expectations later in the program. But for now, let's move on to the next story. The Asian Development Bank (ADB) has kept India's growth forecast unchanged at 7% in 2024-25, as it sees the country as the fastest growing economy, with robust growth in the industrial sector and a rebound in agriculture due to a better monsoon. The ADB projected India's growth economy to grow at 7.2% in 2025-26 in its report released today. India's industrial sector is projected to grow robustly, driven by manufacturing and strong demand in construction. Agriculture is expected to rebound amid forecasts for an above normal monsoon, while investment demand remains strong, led by public investment, the ADB report stated. The announcement comes close on the heels of the International Monetary Fund's upgrade for the growth of the Indian economy to 7% from 6.8% projected in April. Mr. Bhattacharya, ADB has revised its growth. It has kept, I beg your pardon, ADB's growth projection remains the same at 7%, whereas IMF just yesterday, it upgraded at 6.8 from 6.8 to 7%, and RBI just lately, it had also revised 7.2%. Now, all these things, all these statistics that's come out, they're saying it depends a lot on the monsoon. It also depends, and it's also driven by domestic demand. So the fact of the matter is that this kind of a thing is contingent on good monsoon and low inflation. Yes. But if you look at the inflation figures for June, how will you correlate it to the figures that have come out?
You have raised a very important issue here. I think what is happening, quite a few things in the Indian economy. Now, the 7% projection from ADB and IMF projection of 7% compared to Reserve Bank of India's projection of 7.2% growth in the current year must be seen in the context of the growth that the Indian economy saw of around 8.2% last year.
Yes.
So from 8.2%, is coming down to 7%, and a higher base, 7.2%, is good growth in the current global situation. So Indian economy on the whole is doing well, number one. Number two is that Indian economy is doing well, 7.2% growth will happen in the current year, but it will be riding largely on higher investments. And as you would know that any economy rides on two wheels, and the one wheel is investment and the other wheel is demand. Now, right now, our demand in the economy is very muted. Demand is not growing that much, which is why the private sector is not coming back with their investments, or they are not reviving their investment because they don't see demand that much. So therefore, the budget that you talked about may probably will have to look at closely how it can generate demand, not just in the urban India, because in urban India demand is still okay. It is a rural India which where almost 2/3 of the Indians live. That is what is very critical, and that demand will also to some extent will be influenced by the kind of monsoon that we see. But on the whole, the disposable surplus with people will be very important. One additional data point that you need to be conscious of is that in the last few months, we have seen that the net financial savings, the net household financial savings is coming down. So which means that the households are saving less in terms of bank deposits or in terms of investments in various schemes. Now, if that financial savings is coming down, this essentially means that the people have less disposable income and the household are seeing higher debt levels. In such a situation, it is even more important for the budget and the government to look into ways how you can revive demand by giving some sort of a fiscal stimulus. But let me say the government has been very, very conservative on this. The government has so far pursued a path of boosting investment rather than boosting demand. So in the hope that investments at some point in time will revive demand, let us see what path the government follows. It's a matter of an economic philosophy, and the budget will tell us that whether the government has changed gears or not.
Right. And talking about the ADB projections and the IMF projections, for China, the IMF has upgraded growth forecast for the calendar year 2024 by 40 basis points to 5%. So, and it says that is due to rebound in private consumption and strong exports in the first quarter. Do you see it as a good news? Because it also says that the Chinese economy will slow down in 2025 and over, it will continue to decelerate.
China is such a giant of an economy that if something happens in China, the whole world sneezes. So therefore, if this development has taken place in China, I would look at it is that even though the prices may go up, but it will actually help steer the global economy. It might mean that the Indian share in the overall global growth may come down a little, but Chinese economy doing better is good in the larger sense of global economic growth.
Even if it does continue to decelerate by few points here and there.
There are clear signals that the Chinese economy in some sectors are maybe coming back to the earlier cycle.
एशिया के बाजार का हाल जानते हैं और यूरोप का भी। सबसे पहले एशिया का। एशिया के 5 प्रमुख सूचकांकों में से 3 सूचकांक आज गिरावट के साथ बंद हुए। दक्षिण कोरिया का कोस्पी 0.80%, चीन के शंघाई कंपोजिट इंडेक्स में 0.45%, जापान के निक्केई में 0.43% गिरावट के साथ आज आज बंद हुए हैं। इस बीच हांगकांग का हैंगसेंग इंडेक्स 0.06% और सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स इंडेक्स 0.05% मामूली बढ़त के साथ बंद हुए हैं। यूरोप के तीनों प्रमुख सूचकांक अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक आज गिरावट के साथ कारोबार कर रहे हैं। जर्मनी का डेक्स 0.53%, फ्रांस का कैक 0.34% और लंदन का फुटसी 0.24% की कमजोरी के साथ ये कारोबार कर रहे थे। AK भट्टाचार्य जी, गिरावट हम दिख रहे हैं ज्यादा एशिया और यूरोप में। पहला प्रश्न तो ये, और दूसरा प्रश्न ये कि हम अपने घरेलू शेयर बाजार में मतलब अच्छा ही अच्छा देख रहे हैं, ऑल टाइम हाई लगातार देख रहे हैं, तो आगे के लिए आप क्या देखते हैं उसमें?
देखिए, जो आपने यूरोपियन बाजार की बात जो जिक्र किया वो उनकी इकोनॉमी को रिफ्लेक्ट करता है, और जो भारतीय शेयर बाजार में जो हो रहा है वो भारतीय इकोनॉमी की जो पोटेंशियल जो है उसको रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहा है जी। जो हम भारतीय बाजार में देख रहे हैं जो पिछले कई दिनों में, वो मैं समझता हूँ कि एक प्री बजट रैली है। बहुत आशाएं अपेक्षाएं हैं बजट से। ग्रोथ की जो पोटेंशियल है वो सिर्फ 7% नहीं है, 7% से ज़्यादा है। अगर इंडियन इकोनॉमी में अगर रिफॉर्म की और एक बस्ट ऑफ रिफॉर्म्स आती है, अगर इन्वेस्टमेंट के जरिए अगर डिमांड में बढ़ोतरी होती है, अगर डिमांड ग्रोथ सिर्फ एक ऊपर के हिस्से में न होकर सारे अर्थनीतिक में हो, तो मैं समझता हूँ कि ये स्टॉक मार्केट का जो एक बुलिश ट्रेंड है ये चलता रहेगा। और ये भी देखना पड़ेगा कि जो अननेसेसरी स्पेकुलेटिव जो ट्रेड जो हो रही है उसको बहुत ध्यान से देखना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ये समय ऐसा है, अगर आपने रिसेंटली जो सिक्योरिटीज एंड एक्सचेंज बोर्ड ऑफ इंडिया के चेयरपर्सन के रिसेंट स्टेटमेंट्स में आपने देखे होंगे, यहाँ पे जो वायदा बाजार में जो बातें हो रही हैं, जो डेरिवेटिव्स का जो बहुत ही बढ़ रहा है, ये हमें पूरी तरह से सूक्ष्म नजर से इसको देखना है। और रेगुलेशन बहुत बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करेगी, क्योंकि एक एक्सुबरेंस तो ठीक है, पर अगर इरेशनल एक्सुबरेंस हो जाए वो अर्थनीति और मार्केट के लिए हानिकारक बन सकती है।
एक्सुबरेंस के साथ सावधानी भी बहुत जरूरी है। Moving on to the US markets, all 3 US major indices extended gains on Tuesday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average surged more than 700 points to secure another all-time closing high. The benchmark S&P 500 also notched another record with 0.64% growth amid growing conviction that an interest rate cut is near. And the Nasdaq was up by 0.20%. Mr. Bhattacharya, when we talk about US markets and we see how they behaved yesterday, how much of a factor was US Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's speech. I wouldn't say speech, but his statements when he spoke on Monday at a function in Washington D.C. So there he said that the U.S. central bank will not wait until inflation hits 2% to cut interest rates. So are we seeing, this is the result of what's happening in the market?
Well, yes, to a great extent, this is what the market is doing. The U.S. Fed chief has given different signals at different points in time. Till recently, there were suggestions that the rate cut cycle is long away. But the recent statements suggest a different kind of an approach.
Well, he did not say that. I'm not indicating when it's going to start.
But he said that it is not completely ruled out. In the sense that the central bank, the jargon and central bank language, only the market participants probably understand them better. But my sense is that we are not going to see any rate cut but of course what it might mean and should mean is that the rate increases is certainly gone. So it will be, if there's anything that we are going to see some sort of a rate cut, may not be this year, maybe early next year.
Moving on to commodities, oil prices were steady today, a day after the benchmark Brent hit a 1-month low, as a decline in U.S. oil stockpiles helped offset signs of weakening demand in China. Brent crude gained 0.43% to $84.09 per barrel. The U.S. West Texas Intermediate was up by 0.66% to $81.29 per barrel when reports last came in.
सोना आज बढ़त के साथ कारोबार कर रहा है। सोने का वायदा मूल्य अगस्त अनुबंध के लिए 0.30% की बढ़त के साथ 74,499 रुपये प्रति 10 ग्राम के स्तर पर दर्ज किया गया। वहीं चांदी आज गिरावट के साथ कारोबार कर रही थी। 5 सितंबर 2024 अनुबंध के लिए चांदी आज अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक 0.40% फिसल गई और 93,483 रुपये प्रति किलोग्राम पर कारोबार कर रही थी।
Let's move on to the next story. The assets under management AUM of equity mutual funds witnessed a growth of 8.27% sequentially to reach 23.8 lakh crore in June, from around 22 lakh crore in May, which is excluding sectoral or thematic funds, according to a report. Around 57% of the funds were able to outperform their respective benchmarks over the past 1 month, ended June 30th. The report was based on the study of 281 open-ended equity diversified funds. Meanwhile, foreign portfolio investors, FPIs, pumped in 15,352 crore rupees in Indian equities during the first half of July. FPIs made a net inflow of 15,352 crores in equities this month. In June, the FPIs infused 26,565 crore in equities over political stability. A quick comment on you. On this from you, Mr. Bhattacharya, the way the equity mutual funds have been performing, and if I can say so, the FPIs returning to Indian markets.
Well, FPIs are returning for two reasons. One, they are relieved that political stability is returned, in a sense that there was this earlier apprehension that election results might throw up an unclear verdict. Now the verdict is clear that you have a government which is stable, and the top team is by and large the same. So there is that stability, so which is why the foreign portfolio investors are coming back. And the second is that they expect that the budget will continue the kind of policies that the government has been following earlier. Markets love stability, markets love continuity, and no sudden shocks are liked by the markets. So I think what you're seeing from this mutual fund, and they're all equity funds,
yes,
they're diversified funds. So therefore, these are stable funds, stable money, and not just the domestic investor is coming into it, but also the foreign investors. I think the budget will provide a different direction. We'll see what the budget does on Tuesday.
भट्टाचार्य जी, अब मार्केट मंत्र में आने और श्रोताओं को महत्वपूर्ण जानकारी, विचार और तर्क देने के लिए आपका शुक्रिया।
Namaskar.
And before we close, a reminder of the headlines. Indian exports show resilience amid global challenges, reports CRISIL. At multi-commodity exchange, gold prices rise while silver is trading down, and oil prices steady amid Chinese demand concerns. And that's it in this edition of Market Mantra. For now, goodbye and namaskar from the entire team.
Namaskar.
Market